This is Jamie Lee. I'm here with Deborah Tavares, and we're at the 575 Administration Boulevard, or Road, the administration building that's holding a meeting today. And here's Deborah Tavares, who's been attending the meeting all morning. And we want to get a little bit of what she's seen. It's been a pretty incredible morning. But before we start that, Deborah, why don't you hold up the newspaper from this morning of the Press Democrat and open it up there, just unfold it. And what they're showing here is that they found archaeological, historical native Pomo artifacts in the, I don't know if it's Coffee Park or Fountain Grove, but effectively this will become a historical site where they won't be allowed to rebuild based on Native American history. And so this is another way they're going to keep people from reoccupying the land.
In Glen Ellen.
Glen Ellen it is. And we expect to see more of these finds come out. So, Deborah, what did you see today in being there for the first 3 hours of this full-on meeting that includes a bunch of media, Board of Supervisors, FEMA, and who else is here?
Okay, so I'm here today because we received a media advisory of this meeting held at the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors. And it says they invite community members to attend and provide input to guide post-fire recovery efforts at a workshop on infrastructure today, Tuesday, February the 27th, 2018. And there will be other local, state, and federal officials will be taking part as well. So they talk about the topics that will be discussed to include and prepare for a resilient city. It's all about resiliency, fire safety, utility infrastructure, and strengthening and improving our community warning programs. So I want to go over some of the things that I heard in this meeting. It's very diabolical. All the perpetrators of this event are here. They're building up from a planned disaster by the use of directed energy weapons, which you can hear that interview in full by Googling the plan to burn up Northern California. And of course,
this is on your site, stopthecrime.net.
Yes, and I am, of course, Deborah Tavares, and I do run the website stopthecrime.net, where you can find that plan to burn up Northern California as well. But the agenda here today by the perpetrators here in Northern California was to again discuss the community warning program, preparing for a more resilient county. Now, for many of you, I've reported on resilient cities. I would recommend that you go to the YouTube Kill Cities by Rothschild and Rockefeller to understand what resilient planning is all about in your town. This is happening here in Sonoma County, but it's an extension of UN Agenda 21 policies and all the policies in your cities to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And they're talking about fire safety, utility infrastructure, impact on fire infrastructure, and a discussion. Now, I was able to speak for 2.5 minutes in the first session today, and I told them their first early warning sign was from the emails that Pacific Gas and Electric and PG&E sent 3 years ago, and that it had been out on the internet, and they didn't attend to this. There was no attention paid to this. It was too outlandish to have PG&E and Pacific Gas and Electric talk about the use of satellite lasers on Northern California. And specifically, they said Sebastopol, which is, of course, in Northern California. But there is a second plan on that discussion, the plan to burn up Northern California too, and I advise them that that has not yet happened, but it will. So I would urge everybody to listen to the entire 2-hour presentation. It covers 2 radio shows on the Jefference Radio Network, of which I was affiliated with at the time. But today's meeting is diabolical. This is really like a deadly computer game going live. What do I mean by that? Well, they're talking about deploying cameras throughout this area. They say that it will take about 30 cameras, 20 to 30 cameras. They will have a 150-mile range. They will have infrared so that you can observe in real time, 24 hours around the clock. And they say that it will be a hardened network, and it will be tied up and connected to Amazon in the cloud. And these cameras will be less expensive for Sonoma County, Napa, and Lake counties to deploy which they said they need them because of fires and earthquakes.
These are going to be up in the air. They're putting
These are
up?
Be, they say that
30 cameras that'll go 250 miles. To
150 miles.
150 mile range to do what? Why are they?
Yeah, to be an early warning visual
for fires.
In real time on fires and or earthquakes, whatever type of destructive, weaponized weather assault any of us get. These cameras will show them in real time. They say that the first responders will know in real time where to go. And they were talking about how there has been no training in the social science of disasters. And one city council member said that we need to have a monthly training session with all the public here, much like they had in San Francisco years ago with a drop, tuck, and cover. So they want to have a neighborhood watch. They want to have a neighborhood education where people are training on a monthly basis for the doom of the weaponized weather assaults on all of us.
Which can also be used as see something, say something,
Absolutely.
Turned around on us and spying on each other.
Yeah, in fact, that is exactly what they're saying, Jamie. They're saying that this has got to go from top down into our neighborhoods. And that in Oakland, they conscripted about 20,000 people to report from the ground after all of the major events that Oakland went through. There has been FEMA here this morning. There has been, and the next session, which is going to start here shortly, is going to be all about making Sonoma County resilient. So again, I asked all of you to type in 100 resilient cities, and you'll find out who's behind that. It's Rockefeller. You will understand that this is for climate refugees. This is what they are doing globally now and in the United States. They are creating climate refugees to herd us in to available housing after they have literally destroyed the housing that is available to us. And as we pointed out as we started this program, already showing why some homes will not be able to be rebuilt because of the unearthing of relics, ancient artifacts. This is going to expand. We're going to cover this locally. We're boots on the ground. We're coming live right now. Again, today is a very monumental day here in Sonoma County. We will be posting this entire meeting on stopthecrime.net so that you can watch it in segments. It is something extremely important. I realize that it is a long post, but there are segments in it that all of you need to take the time to watch and listen, because this is headed to you. And this is as a result of a weaponized weather assault. And that is now the new norm, increased weaponized weather assaults. We have been told that fire season in California will no longer be just a fire season as it had been in the past. It will be all year long. And we know certainly with the plan to burn up Northern California, how they're doing that with killing the trees, with all the toxins from the chemtrailing, the drought that they keep us perpetually in, and we're in a drought again right now.
Greatest drought in the history of California. Last year was the greatest rains and snow, followed previously by the greatest droughts. And this last summer was record temperatures, and then we got torched out. So we're under attack here. Deborah, PG&E is Pacific Gas and Electric, our local electrical power supply. Can you speak and talk to me what you talked about last night with me about the documentation on our homeowners' bills with PG&E about the EMF frequencies?
Yes, actually, I will be putting that up on stopthecrime.net, but the bill inserts in our monthly billing with Pacific Gas and Electric and also Southern California Edison. Any of you listening right now can just type in and look at your bill inserts online about the explanation of EMF, electromagnetic frequencies. They describe electromagnetic frequencies as something that is common to our use of electricity and appliances, etc. They are saying that the health deficits of electromagnetic frequencies is inconclusive by international, national, and California standards. While they say there's no known health effects or or problems from the electromagnetic frequencies, they then negate what they say by saying, but it is inconclusive, and consensus requires that they continue to review the subject. So what is happening in our bills is the admission from our electric companies and gas companies that they are saying that it in fact does cause health damage. So,
and they're not sure as to what effect it's caused by or how much it's causing, so they must put the disclaimer in the documentation we get mailed every month, correct?
And they do. And what they say is that if we're concerned about the amount of frequencies that we're receiving, if we have sensitivity, many people are EMF electric sensitives, they say that you can reduce your own frequencies in your homes by turning off your appliances, not using an electric razor, not using a hair blower, not using your flat screen television set, your cell phone, etc.
Turning off your Wi-Fi, moving it away from your head, I think.
Yes, moving it away from your head. In other words, they're making it our responsibility to reduce the increased frequencies that they're killing us with.
And they've warned us, so legally, like all the rest of the drug companies with all the syndromes, they say they've warned us, so it's caveat emptor, it's our responsibility to take charge of our own lives and what's happening to us.
That's absolutely correct. So we will have this up on stopthecrime.net. It will be at the top of the homepage so that those of you who have not received this in your billing, you can see what they're saying to us in our bills. It's diabolical. This is,
and there's other meetings like the 5G going in here, as we've chronicled before. There's 4 meetings going on because there was a newspaper article about people protesting putting in the 5G, and now they're hosting 4 meetings as well. These are happening one on top of the other very, very, very quickly, as people are not allowed to move back in their homes yet, and there's benzene in the soil, so some of the escrows are being canceled as potential buyers and vulture capitalists are moving in.
Well, Jamie, what is also very horrific is that at a water meeting that we attended just last week, they said that because of the 324 homes in a specific area in Fountain Grove, which is just above the Hilton Hotel that burned here in October of 2017 during the U.S.'s history most costly fire, and we're still with body counts now. We still don't know how many people were killed and or murdered as a result of this fire. But what they're saying about these 224 homes, of which there were only a few homes left standing, the water started to taste bad and smell bad, and so those few occupants that were still able to live in homes that were there reported it. The county has had lab tests. They found benzene in the water. They started taking water bottles up to these people, and of course that doesn't minimize their showers, their sinks, their laundry. They were also told not to water their landscaping because the benzene, which is of course cancer causing and other kinds of ailments before you die of cancer, they said don't water your plants because it will seep down into the groundwater table. So there's still people living up in Fountain Grove, which we now call Fountain Grave, drinking and being exposed to benzene. But what they also said at this meeting was that the city would issue building permits for rebuilds in that specific benzene-contaminated area, but they would not be issuing occupancy permits because the benzene and the infrastructure of the water system would have to be replaced, and they're still working at getting to the bottom of this contamination, of which they claim they don't understand what the bottom of the contamination is, just like they're saying they don't know what the reality of these fires are, and they still haven't weighed in on that.
4 months later, they still cannot tell us officially, with all their experts and forensics, fire forensics, and Captain or Chief Ken Pimlott of CAL FIRE, I called him out directly. Shame on him for not being able to even give us an idea of how over 60 fires started in the middle of the night and started out of nowhere when no storms were forecast. So I wanted to kind of finish this on a positive note. I went to a wonderful meeting that you put together last week, a health symposium, Deborah, and it was so wonderful to see the activists combined with health practitioners. We had holistic people, we had crystal people, we had holistic herbal medicines, we had salad masters, a wonderful gal doing cooking classes, which we're going to do ourselves on using non-toxic cookware, which I didn't know anything about, and that was very educational. But it was a wonderful way to bring communities together. And we talk a lot about dark and doom and gloom, but there are solutions of what we can do. And I saw that last week and got very encouraged and very empowered to see. We talked about activism and what was going on, but we had a solution base of how you can use zeolite, you can use thermaline, you can use shungite. I just went down after the talk and got some shungite for my son and for myself,
and
crystals for energy healing as well.
And preventing the assaults of electromagnetic frequencies on our homes and to our bodies. Crystals are extremely important. We'll be talking more about that as we move through more solutions coming soon, and specifically telling all of you where you can get crystals, because we've made contact with an international exporter of crystals who has opportunity to go into South America to the crystal mines, and he's extremely well known, and he's boxing up crystals and telling people how to position them in their homes and around their property, which does reduce the psychotronic weapon assaults onto our properties. He explained how crystals were our advantage in World War II as quartz in radios,
yeah.
And that was very, very interesting. And of course, many people are unaware of the importance of crystals. So we really want to underscore the importance of crystals as we find our environment being further layered with frequencies that are happening. What we're also noticing is that the Verizon assault with putting in these additional frequencies throughout our communities is happening throughout the county. In fact, you will find that generally these types of agendas start going through the country. When we first discovered the deployment of the smart meters, it was not just here in Northern California or Southern California. We just happened to notice it when it was already 75% deployed upon us with smart meters. So what you need to do is you need to look and find out what your city is doing with engaging your utility companies or your wireless companies to deploy streetlights, to deploy additional additives to all of your existing infrastructure to prevent dropped cell calls. That's how they'll promote this.
And faster downloads of your videos, blah, blah, blah.
Yes,
yeah.
And of course, the frequencies are what is going to absolutely destroy our cellular makeup and cause massive genocide. We also have on StopTheCrime.net a new document. It's entitled Population Engineering and climate action. It's at the top of the website. I would recommend that you all download this and understand how the PSYOPs is being played out. But as Jamie pointed out, it's important to link together with solutions, and that's what we're trying to do here in between reporting during these horrific meetings that we attend. So really want to encourage everyone that's listening right now, we have to engage. We must engage. We can no longer sit quiet, and we need to go forward with the love and hope for humanity, because that's where it is right now. We need to do all we can in creating awareness. That is our legacy. That is what we are here now for and what we are here now to do. So thank you so very much for listening, and pass this information along far and wide. More importantly, I will leave you with this. We have primary water. We do not have a water shortage. This is the PSYOPs now being played out in Cape Town in South Africa. They've just extended the 0 day that they keep talking about, no more water. We discovered the PSYOPs being played here in Northern California in a town called Mountain House. Mountain House, about 4 years ago, was being shown throughout the United States as running out of water in 10 days. When our research team called some realtors in Mountain House, we discovered that they did not even know that their town was being used as a PSYOPs. So as we looked into it, we found that Mountain House was purchased by Sun Trust in the mid-90s. We researched Sun Trust, which was Rothschild. Mountain House was built as an UN Agenda 21 smart city, fully self-contained. It runs by CCNRs. It has a very peculiar city setup, and the financing for buying homes is through the USDA. And this was just really literally a town set up to create a PSYOPs on limited water resources. They got busted. So you need to understand, we don't have a water shortage. When you hear water shortages being discussed, you need to go out and get the information out about primary water.
So give me the elevator pitch on primary water. We did drill down 300 feet, and we got all the water we want. Is that?
Well, no, actually, it surfaces. Primary water explained is a YouTube. Again, primary water explained will tell you about the depths of water. It always surfaces. It's the process of hydrogen and oxygen. When that merges together, that creates vapor. It must surface as a water form. And it does here in California and where you live as well, in hot and cold springs. Also geysers that spray up out of the ground endlessly, where oases appear in deserts, sometimes where it very seldom, if ever, rains. Also at the very top of these volcanic mountain peaks in Hawaii, where you see these beautiful cascading waterfalls continuing to flow endlessly. This is primary water. And they blew up the primary water amazing eighth wonder of the world called the Great Man-Made River Project that Muammar Gaddafi created for his people in Libya. That was blown off the map. You can type in the Great Man-Made Water Project and you can watch it being built in Libya. It was an amazing feat. And the Libyan people were given 75% of their water for free. Now keep in mind, this is pure, clean drinking water. We've only been taught about the secondary water cycle, which is rain and snowmelt. Rain and snowmelt is actually the process of the evaporation of primary water. So all of you need to know, we are floating on water. We are the water planet. And oftentimes we don't need to access it deeply, and sometimes we do. So again, primary water explained is a good illustration on how you access water.
So creating these false scarcities, we can make a scarcity, and we can control prices just like we do with the oil, now switching to batteries when we've had free energy for over 100 years with Tesla. And what I understand with the attacks on Libya, Gaddafi, there's a wonderful Muammar Gaddafi's manifesto. He had those people living in pleasure. They had free water, they
free
had
homes, free education,
and it was a model for the future, and that's why they took him out.
And he was just getting ready to back the dinar with gold. He wanted out of the Rothschild network.
Just like Lincoln was going to back the greenback and Kennedy was going to switch to the dollar. They will not allow that to happen. And to segue into Bitcoin, they're allowing that to happen, so they want it to happen. It's not just rogue bunch of guys putting it out. They're going to a cryptocurrency and getting rid of the dollar bills, and then soon we'll have tattoos with our old datas on us and the rest of this. And the next segment, we're going to get into wetware.
Yes, and I would urge all of you to go to primarywater.org. Share this site far and wide. Our children are getting very depressed, and I just was hearing this morning on the radio, Jamie, that they want 12-year-olds now to take a survey because they're seeing depression in children, and they want to start medicating them and having them go to seek psychiatric intervention. And of course, why not? Our children are being taught that there's just too many people using too much stuff, and that's not true. And we need to do all we can to raise our children up with the idea that the scarcity is not real. It's an entire psyops, building new markets up on top of false scientific realities. So we can do anything that's positive. It's to share the good news of water. Plentiful, pure, clean, fresh drinking water. So we're going to be going back into this meeting shortly, and we'll have more to share as we roll into the afternoon here in what's left of Northern California.
And I just wanted to add another thing with the water is grow your own food, folks. Teach your children how seeds work and where things come from. Get them as self-sufficient and as self-reliant, because as they're cutting down, we're going to have the market collapse. And when the market collapses, there's going to be a lot of poverty going on. They're already cutting 30% off mental health. They're kicking out the homeless again, cutting funding for everything. And this is while the Wall Street markets are doing extremely record highs. When the market's correct, which they're starting to do now, all of this will collapse. So we'll become self-sufficient, self-reliant, and join your community and join your neighbors. And I want to just take one moment here to thank a hero of mine, and that's Lou. Lou is on the cameras behind the scenes doing all the work, supporting Deborah and giving her the energy to come out here and providing the resources so you can see all this wonderful work this woman, this courageous woman is doing to help bring awareness, to help be the change we have to see And please support Deborah at stopthecrime.net and do it yourself. It's not her doing the work that's going to make it better for everybody. It's all of us taking what she's doing and leveraging off it yourself in your own communities and in your own towns.
Well, Jamie, while I appreciate the gratitude given towards Lou and myself, I also want to thank you, because while we only recently met, I want to say that it is so important that all of us connect with people that understand. That will help to fortify all of us. Stay aware. Watch Jamie's channel. What is your channel now? They keep taking
me down. It's the back to the original one of Plain, APLANE Truth. And you can look it up and see how long I'm still up. But this is such important work. And just to make really clear, this is going to happen everywhere, or is happening everywhere, these rollouts. And we're called to these times, folks. It's time to step up on the plate. It's not about you. It's sacrificing for the sacred, like our parents did, like their parents did. And we're going to be the change we have to see. But it's not going to be the end result. We have to start making the change. And thank you, Deborah, for everything you're doing.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Lou. Thank you, Jamie.
Catch you next time.
That being said, this year is starting to look like a severe season for flu, and maybe more severe than last year, which was also bad, said the head of the CDC's influenza division. There's lots of flu in lots of places. Recently, there's been an uptick in activity by another influenza, and they talk about various viruses in this article, and they talk about warning that even if the season appears to have peaked, flu viruses will circulate for weeks to come, and people should continue to take precautions against getting infected. People over the age of 65 are being hospitalized for flu this season more than any other population. They're targeting that population for genocide. Even people age 50 to 64 are being hospitalized in large numbers. Flu often hits the ends of age spectrum more than the middle, and that's the case this year as well. A grim tally may continue to rise in coming weeks of deaths. Officials feared that the flu vaccine may not work particularly well this season, but it appears to be faring slightly better than expected. Preliminary testing by the CDC suggests the vaccine is probably more protective than it was in Australia during its 2017 winter. The Australian interim estimate suggested that the vaccine was the main virus that was able to affect the H3N2, was the main virus that during their most recent winter was only about 10% effective. Only 10% effective. That means if 100 people got the flu shot and all were exposed to the HN2 viruses, only 10 would have been protected. Again, only 10 out of 100 would have been protected with the vaccine. They go on to say that it looks more like the H3N2 portion of the vaccine is performing here like it did last year, when it was 34% effective at preventing infection. Unfortunately, that's about on par for the flu shot's H3N2 component, which is the weak link of flu vaccine. The CDC should have interim data on the question of vaccines effectiveness in the second half of February of 2018. Now understand, this is a fingerprintless scattering of bioweapons on the American population. Now I have had this vetted with higher ups, and it's conclusive. This is part of the genocide program and the Rothschild and Rockefeller assault to transform the United States by all kinds of weapons systems, not only economic, but attacks with flus as well. So I wanted to read to you some of the sections out of the NASA War Plan. This will be linked under this broadcast and on stopthecrime.net, which reveals the following and is being executed by the U.S. Air Force, DARPA, the CIA, FBI, Southern Command, Atlantic Command, Australian Department of Defense, and many others are involved in the NASA War Plan. On page 51, it talks about the use of a fingerprintless scattering of bioweapons for war strategies. and what they're doing here in this country. They talk about bacteriological viruses, fatal to disabling, short to long-term scales, undetectable, and binary means two-part system. So they're using undetectable binary assaults on us as well. They talk about, on page 52, that airborne varieties of Ebola and Lassa, etc., this is germ warfare. And they are engaged with germ warfare on the American population. Long-term fingerprintless campaign as opposed to shock and awe. These are bioweapons. Note the silent weapons system for a quiet war is fully engaged. Page 53 of the NASA war document talks about use of existing biocommatives and infection, and ideal for incapacitating people, as well as this being weaponized by the U.S. and the USSR in the 50s and the 60s, easily transmitted via aerosol. So we know that the overhead spraying program and weather manipulation programs are also being used for the dispersions of viruses as well. We know that. It's highly infectious. They say that a 1 to 5 day incubation, 3-week recovery, tested on humans in Operation Whitecoat, which we're going to discuss in a moment. No treatment available. Now, I'm going to read some of the information from the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, which is an operational research technical manual and a declaration of war and genocide on the global population. So on page 6 of Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, this is what it says. In 1954, this was the issue of primary concern, although the so-called moral issues were raised in view of the law of natural selection. It was agreed that a nation or world of people who will not use their intelligence are no better than an animal, so that does not have intelligence. Such people are beasts of burden and stakes on the table by choice and consent. On page 7 of the Silent Weapons System, it says, in interest of the future world order, peace and tranquility, it was decided to privately wage a quiet war against the American public with an ultimate objective of permanently shifting the natural and social energy or the wealth of the undisciplined and irresponsible many into the hands of the self-disciplined, responsible, worthy few. In order to implement this objective, it was necessary to create, secure, and apply new weapons, which, as it turned out, was a class of weapons so subtle and sophisticated in their principle of operation and public appearance as to earn for themselves the name of silent weapons. The public cannot comprehend this weapon, and therefore cannot believe that they are being attacked and subdued by a weapon. We are all being attacked and subdued by these weapons. The public might instinctively feel that something is wrong, but that is because of the technical nature of the silent weapon. They cannot express their feelings in a rational way or handle the problem with intelligence. Therefore, they do not know how to cry for help and do not know how to associate with others to defend themselves against this weapon. When a silent weapon is applied gradually, the public adjusts and adapts to its presence and learns to tolerate its encroachment on their lives until the pressure, psychological and economic, become too great and they crack up. Therefore, the silent weapons system is a type of biological warfare. It attacks the vitality, options, and mobility of the individuals of a society by knowing, understanding, manipulating, and attacking their sources of natural and social energy and their physical, mental, and emotional strengths and weaknesses. Now, the NASA war plan discussed Operation Whitecoat, and I'm going to go over that a bit here in this horrific announcement that I'm making. And I will discuss this further on upcoming radio shows. But this is a consent statement of some of the military that participated in Operation Whitecoat. And this is actually their consent statement as given to them that they had to sign. And this one was signed back in June 29th of 1955. It says it's confidential. This will be under the links of this broadcast. A program of investigation sponsored by the United States Army aimed towards determining the amount of a disease agent necessary to produce illness in men has been explained to me. Again, this is a consent that one of these participants had to sign. They go on to say that they understand that the only way in which this essential information can be obtained is by the exposure of volunteers to known amounts of the agent. I understand that such volunteers may become ill and that the program is not without hazard. I further understand that the agent to be studied is a virus which is the cause of Q fever. I understand that the organisms causing the disease will be suspended in air. I'm reading that again. And that by breathing this air, I will expose myself to infection with this disease agent by breathing the air. This is an aerosol dispersion that the United States has been under. I understand that within 3 to 21 days after the exposure, I may become ill, and that the expected symptoms are fever, headache, and general aching. I understand that the course of the disease may be from 1 to 3 weeks. I understand the decision as to appropriate treatment will be made by the attending physicians. I understand that such treatments, if employed, may have to be given in 2 or more phases. I further understand that I will be restricted to a single area for the period of this study, probably 4 to 6 weeks. I understand that various diagnostic procedures will be required. There has been no exercise of force, fraud, deceit, duress, overreaching, or other forms of constraint or coercion in order to obtain this consent from me. Of my own free will, and after consideration for a period of more than 4 weeks, I affix my signature herein, indicating my willingness as a soldier to serve voluntarily as a subject for these studies, with the understanding that I will not be required to participate in studies which, in themselves, are contrary to my religious beliefs.